already getting comments on TikTok.
We have come to the end of the third and final day of questioning of the undercover police officer Jim Boyling, who used the cover name Jim Sutton to infiltrate a plethora of groups, most significantly and reclaim the streets. He deceived 3 women into intimate personal sexual relationships, having 2 children with one of them. The vast majority of both today and yesterday afternoon were subject to restriction order. However, there was a section earlier on which myself and Donald O'Driscoll reacted to, and then there was further questions, Rule 10s as they are known in the process, that had come from other lawyers, from other court participants, which were put to Jim Boyling. I'm joined by Kate Wilson of Police Spies Out Lives.
Hello.
And everything else. The further questions were a mixed bag, as they always are. What did you make of them?
I would like to say before we
Please.
start talking about the further questions that the parts of the hearing that we're not able to talk about have left me so utterly emotionally exhausted that I don't feel like I can do justice to the bits that we can talk about. So this might be a bit of an odd video just because there's so much that we can't say and it's really exhausting.
Yeah, just on that, I have just come out with a private meeting with John Mitting where I was reprimanded yet again, though in the words of John Mitting, I am not to be blamed for a breach of the restriction order that I made earlier. I was already on my final warning. I hadn't made, as it turned out, as we all agreed in the room, that it wasn't my fault that I breached it again. So I haven't broken my final warning, but I am very much on notice.
Yes.
We will not be breaching any restriction orders in this video. So hello to Kyle and everybody else who watches and checks these videos. There will be no breaches in here. You can stop watching now. But yeah, just on that quickly, yes, I'm not in any further trouble than I already am generally in life.
Well, that is good to know.
Yes.
But
yes, it was fucking awful. It was so fucking horrible. It was so fucking horrible and so fucking frustrating. The whole restricted section of both today and yesterday, horrific, emotionally just. Oh.
But also, I think it's important to say there was a lot of stuff said that won't ultimately be restricted, and so there will be a video coming out which has some of the most emotionally brutal bits removed, and there will be a transcript as well that has the breaches removed. And I'd encourage you to watch because there was some very, very important stuff I'm not going to mention just in case it's still technically in breach of a restriction order. But I do encourage you to go to those videos, and we will be sharing them once they're made live. It should be this week, I believe. I mean, it's been very, very complicated, the evidence. And
we will
the
be doing a
inquiry, I
recap.
think, are actually doing their best to try and get it out fast.
And
so
we will be doing a weekly recap of everything that's happened in the week, and that will include the stuff that was currently restricted once it's out of restriction. And we'll do that in the fullness of time in a full way. Just quickly, there's only 14 people watching. We've got 1 like. If people could like this video, share it, subscribe, all that rubbish. Sorry for the cringe.
So the Rule 10 questions. So this happens at the end of all of the hearings. There's a break just before the end where they say, are there any Rule 10 questions? It's actually the first time for me that I've ever participated, because we've always been hearing about the officers that I don't necessarily know that much about, and while I might have an interest in the stuff that they're saying, I've never kind of felt invested enough in it to want to have questions raised. But actually this time I did. I mean, partly because I knew Jim Boyling, but also mostly because what we're now talking about is the period where the SDS and the MPOIU cross over. So the first National Public Order Intelligence Unit officers, specifically the officer who stole the dead child's name, Rod Richardson. Interestingly, the MPOIU didn't get the memo about not stealing dead children's identity. So
another thing that shithead did wrong.
So this is one of my pet topics in the inquiry. Basically, is this level of crossover. And during his evidence, Boyling said some quite interesting stuff about. I think it was specifically Mayday 2000, but generally that when more than one SDS officer was going to be at an event, they would sit down. The handlers and the officers would sit down just to have an idea of what each other would be doing on the day, be aware, I know who you are. Like they might well actually avoid each other on the day, but they would brief each other about what they were doing. So what we had during the very beginning of the Rule 10 questions was an admission from Jim Boyling that he was at some of the same meetings as Rod Richardson, that he did know who Rod Richardson was. He claims that he wasn't told who Rod Richardson was. He just immediately knew,
because he's such a super detective.
I've heard. I think there's going to be quite a bit of this. And one of the things that he did make clear in his answers was that the SDS and the MPOIU considered each other to be rivals. And there's quite a lot of quite snarky comments about the SDS. I think it has to be said that the MPOIU did eventually come out on top and the SDS was shut down. So I think there's quite a lot of bad feeling that we're going to be...
He also mentioned another unit, the Covert Functions Unit, which is the main, like, sort of, I guess you'd call criminal undercover, undercover in the criminal world, officers from the Met Police, and the rivalry that existed, which obviously is much greater. We did a podcast with Donald O'Driscoll about the shutting down of the SDS, and we saw in that the reports that were coming out from that unit about the way in which the SDS was run and how it was totally batshit.
So
Donald Driscoll is just
on this point. So that's SO10.
Yes,
they are the de facto undercover policing unit for the Metropolitan Police. They write the courses on doing undercover policing. In fact, there are only one of two accredited people at this time. It's like, so these are the people who are going, this is not undercover work. This is quite special. And it's like, yeah, there's a rivalry there because they know your crap. But at the same time, they refuse it. They're say SO10 doesn't apply to us. None of the methodologies apply to us because we're long-term, we're intelligence only, not evidence. So it's quite a big thing.
I mean, I don't have Donald's incredible capacity for memorizing and understanding special operations unit numbers, but I do know that in the disclosure that we got in the IPT towards the end of Mark Kennedy's operation around 2008, it is reviewed by one of these special operations units who handle, is it SO11? There you go. See, I just, on a good day, I don't have the capacity for that. And frankly, today is not a good day.
I probably get it wrong.
But yeah, the interesting thing about it is that you get this Metropolitan Police unit who do undercover work as a rule, and they're doing it for evidence, for prosecutions, and they look at, and paraphrasing the report quite a lot because it's been a very long day, it basically says, what the fuck are you monkeys playing at? And it's really interesting to see other police officers, and we saw a bit of that today, which I don't think we can talk about, but there's a lot
we can't talk about.
But this thing of other police officers coming from outside the SDS, they were obviously a very insular unit. There was an awful lot of mission creep in these units. They're self-justifying, they're self-tasking, and they go a long way beyond the pale. And it's very interesting. Obviously we think what they were doing was absolutely appalling, but it's interesting to see other police officers coming in and taking a look at what they were doing and finding it, if anything, even more appalling because my crash course in police codes of conduct and regulations has all happened quite recently.
We didn't mean to know this stuff. We didn't go into this process wanting to know about this stuff, but
yeah. So.
Yeah, so I mean, there was a fair bit about that. There were some other questions, some of which related to the way he treated Monica, which again, I mean, just showed that he never fucking listened to a word she said to him. But at the time, blatantly, he was asked about things that she had said to him while they were together. Didn't remember that. I
mean, I think I've said this on these videos already, but it bears repeating. He is a deeply, deeply repellent man.
The worst.
And unrepentant.
Completely.
Utterly unrepentant and very angry.
I mean, I was going to come on to that. I mean, his attitude for the whole time that we were able to talk about, and you could probably infer from the rest of the time, he has been fucking livid that he is being asked questions. I mean, we saw
that he is sitting here at all.
He's here at all. I mean, his body language. I mean, you can see on the video that is in the description of this, his body language to when we ask questions. He's answering before the question's finished. He's saying no, previous answer, same as the previous answer, same as the previous answer. He doesn't even put his head up. Yeah. A petulant child on the stand.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which I find quite gratifying, honestly, because I do think that he ought to be very, very uncomfortable about
Yes.
what he
Self-confessedly bitter.
Yes. I mean,
No shit.
he is bitter because he has, he feels that he is the only officer who has really been punished for any of this. And in some ways, that's quite good for us because his position on it is, I'm the only officer that's ever been, and so he is quite keen for everybody to understand that they were all at it, that this was policy, and obviously that is important evidence that other officers who maybe don't feel singled out in the way that he has have held the shit blue line a bit better and refused to hang people out to dry, whereas there has been an element in Boyling's evidence of being willing to hang people out to dry, and I'm not going to give specifics necessarily because
subject to restriction order.
All sorts of things.
Yes, there was something that wasn't subject to restriction order that was in the further questions that related to his relationship with Rosa. It was very brief. Within it was put to him that Rosa's maintains that had she known right at the very beginning that he was an undercover police officer, she would have never slept with him. He rejects this. He rejects this outright. He says that you didn't see the other side of the communication, what she said to me. You'd only seen what I said to her. He's adamant that he did nothing wrong in this relationship with Rosa, essentially.
I mean, I did find in that part of the questioning, I found it a little odd, and we've got quite used to Barr's questioning of these officers, and I was kind of looking back to the questioning of Lambert and the questioning of Andy Coles, and there was that when he was saying that stuff, there was it wasn't pointed out at any point, and it was glaringly self-evident and maybe just didn't need to be pointed out, and it was better to just let him be petulant, but that he was a police officer in a professional role. This was his job, and he had been lying about who she was, and she was a real person. And that it was clear from his answers that Boyling does not recognize that distinction.
No. Not at all.
Which and it was just like I found myself throughout all those answers just feeling like, yes, but you were a cop and she was real. But you were a cop and she was real. But what are you talking about? You were a cop and she was real. Like,
it's deeply frustrating. His entire approach, deeply frustrating. There was a further closed section of further questions, which we are not allowed to talk about. But just overall, the impression we're left with of Jim Boyling. We always say they're the worst, but I really think this one was the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite.
I mean, I will say.
So far,
like there are different values of worst. Sure. I mean, the 4,733 days that we had to sit and listen to Bob Lambert.
I think it was a few more than that, wasn't it? It certainly felt like more than that.
Were the longest days of my life. But he very, not a nice man.
No, not a nice man. We've had some questions. Let's have a look. They are scum the way they acted. Yes, they are, Angie. Yes, very much they are. Not a question, but a fact. Again, for Angie, Tom, well done for doing all this for us. No problem. I mean, I say no problem. Lots of problems all the time. But I said I would right at the beginning, so I'm doing it. And I'm invested in this whole process myself. I would say, though I kind of make the effort to put the videos on and like all that kind of stuff, there are a lot of other people doing vaguely the same thing as me anyway, and lots of other people doing lots of other really incredibly good work. It's not like I'm doing this in a vacuum, and not least Kate beside me and many others.
Can I just say in response to Angie's next question, there is a lot of stuff we're not allowed to talk about. A lot of that is actually to protect the privacy of some of the people that this man really nastily abused.
Yes.
And we will be able to talk about all of it. And I recommend, I think particularly this week, the end of week roundup, once all the restriction orders have been sorted out and the transcripts are out and we know what we can and we can't say, will be a much less frustrating video to listen to than this one.
Hopefully so.
And I mean, there was other stuff. I mean, there was quite a lot of political stuff, and honestly, like, we've just been buried by the awfulness of the last like day and a half. That means that a lot of that political stuff is harder to draw out right now, just because we're so tired.
Yes.
But
and also like battered by. I mean, like, oh God, I can't. It's the subject matter is particularly upsettingly gross. It's like I feel like I've been watching a gore movie a little bit. You know, it's that kind of that sense of just disgust that kind of you're left with.
Yeah, but you know, there has been really interesting stuff. I mean, one of the things that has come up a few times is this issue from early on in Boyling's deployment, where he was deployed into the Hunt Sabs, and he was present where a number of Hunt Sabs were arrested. I'm hoping when we do the Good Easter Hunt, it was a national hit. Essex Hunt was a particularly nasty, violent hunt where I think the description was you could basically expect to be arrested before midday, and that's exactly what happened on this Good Easter Hunt Sab. But Boyling was there, and they didn't show the video during the questioning, but I think we should when we do, if we can figure out how to do it. We should definitely. There is police. It is
online.
Yep, it's on some of the social media, but it's worth watching.
I don't know if I can. I'm going to try and get it now.
No, have a look on. I think it's one of the last things I tweeted, but there is video of these arrests, and it's very interesting watching Boyling's actions, because actually there's a number of arrests. I think 4 people were arrested in a car park, and Boyling was not arrested. But interestingly, he's actually the only person you see in the videos who fights the cops. And he does it more than once.
Yes.
And everyone else is just kind of standing around, and every time Boyling wades in and they pull their buttons and they rip his clothes and they beat him out the way, and then they arrest someone else. And he walks away from that day. But what was interesting in the evidence today is he walks away from that day, but he did offer to be a witness for the defense, and he was there at the courthouse, outside the courthouse on the day, and it is our belief that he was actually there, prepared to take the witness stand if necessary. And there is a written statement that was drafted. It's not signed, and quite interestingly, at the beginning of his evidence, he claimed that he basically, I think you maybe said it in one of your earlier videos, he basically accuses Bindmans of quite serious misconduct.
That Mike Schwartz.
And
what's interesting is we had one of those fairly rare things, an interjection from John Mitting himself asking a question about this very topic. And I wasn't left with any doubt that John Mitting believes that Mike Schwartz actually didn't falsify the witness statement, and that in fact,
Boyling did when he said this. He said, my own solicitors have said that this is very unlikely, but this is my belief about this. And he did eventually withdraw that belief and say that okay, maybe he did give an account over.
But he doesn't remember.
But he's just forgotten it. But yeah, that was one of those kind of quite incisive moments from John Mitting where he intervenes at the end. I always do enjoy those.
Yes, I mean, I think it's a sign of somebody who's a professional legal bod, going like, just this wouldn't add up. I mean, just by the very nature of it, a law firm wouldn't have drafted that without there being some basis for it. I think what Boyling kept saying was like, it was just a phone call. It wasn't a sit down. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter if you just spoke over the phone.
Yes, if you gave them your account of events and they wrote it down in the form of a witness statement, that is how witness statements come into being.
Exactly.
But he claims that it was a phone call as he was leaving the house, and they said, would you give evidence? And he said yes, and then put the phone down and left the house, which evidently is not what happened, because there is a long...
And also, with my experience of lawyers, they wouldn't just say that. They'd go, "Can you just have a quick chat about what happened? Just what did happen?" And he obviously,
it's not enough that he wants to be a witness statement. They need to know what he saw.
Is it worth them following up or not? Because a lot, like a solicitor who's worth their salt would be like, just checking that you actually have got something worth me writing down, rather than, oh, can I speak to you later? It'd be like, so what, are you worth speaking to or not? What did you see? It was interesting as well. I thought that one of the questions he was asked was whether he'd had any particular briefing before the Good Easter Hunt, of what he was allowed to do. because as you say, he acts like really like. I mean,
he acts like Mark Kennedy, frankly.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And it got me thinking: is it a case of the fact that these undercover officers are presented with the reality of what it's like of dealing with cops in these situations, and then they go, "What the fuck? This is fucking insane. Fuck off. You can't fucking behave like this. Fuck you."
Yeah.
And then they react in like a normal human reaction, which us as activists have learned to suppress because we
know that there's a long list of like resisting arrest, assaulting a police officer.
Right. Because they're undercover cops, they kind of get away with it. But in those moments, they're like it's just like this normal human reaction to the fucking abusive,
fucking
behavior.
outrageous.
Yes, exactly. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the suggestion of like why he didn't get arrested for that maybe is the fact that the unit is not quite as secret as they make out it is, and that the arresting officers on the day had more of an idea of what his actual role was than he claims they did.
Yeah. I mean, so you can see in the video, or in one of the videos, I'm not sure if it's in the one that's been circulated, that on the dashboard of one of the police cars, there is a list, and the guys, basically, there's a cameraman inside the car. It's raining. He doesn't bother to get out. He just kind of moves the car back and forth. It's very shit camera work. But you can see at some point in one of these videos that actually there's a piece of paper on the dashboard that's reflected in the windshield that has the number plates of the vans that the Hunt Sabs who are being arrested are in, which means that they obviously had some prior intelligence, the uniform cops who were there that day, of who was expected to be there, and may well have gone in with plans to. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions that remain. There's a lot of questions that weren't asked. Has to be said, I started saying earlier that this is the first time I've participated in one of those Rule 10 question processes. It's not a good process. Like, what I discovered is that there's basically, you get to the point at the end of the day, everyone is fucking exhausted. I can imagine that the most exhausted person in that room is probably David Barr, who has been on his feet and talking for 3 days straight. And then there's this like feeding frenzy of trying to say this question's important, and trying to convey why.
I mean, it always looks. I mean, I always watch it because it is quite funny. It's like that bit in a cartoon where there's like a load of bodies and loads of dust with the arms and legs poking out.
It's like,
as
wham,
everybody,
bam.
As everybody surrounds David Barr, and he kind of goes around going to various people, and please me sit next. Me next.
People are waving bits of paper around, and then the result of that is that he has about 14 seconds. To organize that into questions that he's going to put to the witness. And it doesn't make sense to me. It would just make so much more sense if the questions were put by the legal teams who understood the reasons why those questions were being asked. Because like there was some questions asked about the targeting against Earth First, which is something that I'm feeling particularly irate about at the moment, because we weren't, Earth First as a group has applied for core participant status. We weren't given it. We don't have legal representation. We weren't given disclosure at the witness stage of the evidence. And then, lo and behold, in this tranche, where we've been told that they're not interested in Earth First, they start throwing around allegations about Earth First being made up of terrorist cells and incendiary devices. Like, what?
Like, really? Come on.
What the fuck? Anyway, there was an attempt to put a question about whether Earth First was a tasking priority and where that came from, and it just ended up being a weird question about when and where he targeted Earth First in the course of his deployment, which just really missed the point.
Very much.
And I think a lot of people who put Rule 10 questions in really felt that the questions had missed the point.
I really feel like it's really common that I think I don't feel it. The Rule 10 process was a fudge in the first place. I'm reminded of back in tranche 1, phase 1, I think, where initially the opportunity was given for cross-examination to other lawyers representing other core participants, and John Mitting, who was very nice and very cuddly to me today, was not very nice and very cuddly to Rajiv Menon, who was asked.
He never is.
He never is. And it was that he decided that he wasn't going to allow other legal representatives to make any representations. It was only going to be the counsel of the inquiry or the witness's own lawyer.
So this is essentially another protection measure that is being put in to protect the police.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose to some extent it may also protect us if the police decided they wanted to cross-examine us at the end of our evidence.
I mean, just to say, actually, there was one exception to that, which happened just at the end of last year, where he allowed the lawyer representing S, who was Mark Jenner's wife while Mark Jenner was deployed, that lawyer was allowed to do a cross-examination. That was a first.
I mean, I think there is
says a lot.
There is a standing. Well, I mean, I think she is the only wife who has given evidence, and I think it's particularly important that perspective got out. But I think there is also a kind of standing understanding, like a sort of rolling understanding that there is, in exceptional circumstances, it can happen. I remember that when L3 was being questioned about the gunpowder plot in
this is James Thompson's insane story
of
Operation
Lime.
Operation Lie, more like.
Where it was suggested that because of the massive difference in factual accounts of the event, that James Thompson's lawyers might want to cross-examine L3. They were like, oh, yes, please. And then they provided a list of questions that they wanted to put to him, which had nothing to do with the factual account of the holiday. They were just set up to try and discredit them as a person and as a witness. And Mitting, I think quite rightly, said, no, if those questions are going to be put, they can be put by counsel to the inquiry.
Yes. And they were, and counsel inquiry cherry-picked, essentially, from that list. And they were all absolute nonsense ones about, have you had any media training?
It was essentially trying to say, like, have you been trained to give this evidence?
Yes,
it was have you been coached to give this evidence? It was absolute nonsense, and a bit telling, really, because there were big questions about the what do you call it, the different versions of events, and the fact that James Thompson's lawyers didn't want to go into any more detail about any of those glaring factual inaccuracies in their own clients' evidence, I think was quite telling in itself, really, that the only questions that they had were about the character of the witness that was sat there.
There's been another comment. These analysis videos complement the raw coverage brilliantly, watched after and also watched before. If you want to go back and rewatch certain bits, I hope everything survives for future study. Yes, all these videos end up on the Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance channel. In theory, they're designed to be watched to complement the raw footage from the inquiry itself. And I always had this idea of like kind of editing together bits of the inquiry, bits of the reaction videos from various people alongside raw footage from the time in order to like tell the story. I remember some time ago, Donald O'Driscoll saying to me, it's not meant to be a narrative. You don't get like the payoff. It's not a story. There's not a beginning, middle, and end. We just see glimpses here and there. And it was an attempt to sort of bring these glimpses together and create a narrative that people could understand what's going on. Obviously, that's an insane amount of work, and I don't have the skills to do it. But that was always the idea. But you can do it yourself just by jumping in and out of the videos. So yeah, thanks for that comment, and I hope they're useful to people.
And if there's any documentary film students out there who would like to make that their end of year project, then
or even any professionals who've got a budget from somewhere else, because we got no money. Speaking of money, if anybody wants to support this work, you can buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/Tom B. Fowler. That would be great. Thanks. I'm not sure what we haven't covered. There's so many things we can't talk about.
There's so much stuff we haven't covered. What I would say is, listen to the end of week video, and hopefully we will be able to talk about it all coherently then, both because we will be more coherent and because restriction orders will have been refined to cover only the things that we definitely shouldn't be talking about.
Yes. Just to say, we initially intended to do that on Friday. I think we're just going to wait for we've got a week off next week. There are no hearings next week. So I think we're probably going to wait for for all the information to come out, and then we'll do that video then. We'll be doing it like a Zoom meeting style, like the last one was, if people watched that, which I'll then edit down. It was 2.5 hours, the video that we did. I edited that down to 1.5 hour audio-only podcast, taking all the times I went, like, subscribe, share, and all those other cringe bits, which hopefully makes it more digestible. So we'll do the same thing again when all that information's come out, and we're able to give a proper overview of what happened. It's been one of the most frustrating weeks at the inquiry, I would say.
It has. Like, I just want to go home.
Yes, me too. Thanks for joining us. As I said, there is no hearing next week. We return on the 23rd.
23rd for
Jason Bishop,
which will be audio only because the man has been given special protections.
Very nice.
This is one that, like, the inquiry has basically said that they consider Jason Bishop's
unremarkable.
Yeah, they consider his deployment to have been unremarkable. He's giving evidence for 1 day only.
Such bullshit.
We don't think it was unremarkable
at all.
And there is likely to be, I'm hoping that Emily Apple will be here, and there is likely to be quite a lot of additional fill-in reporting in the videos that will add to the, I suspect, slightly paltry questions that the inquiry are going to ask of him.
Yeah, very much. There's a lot to be said about Jason Bishop. I mean, I think this concept of unremarkable seems to be that he didn't steal dead child's identity, and he didn't have a sexual relationship with anybody.
And he didn't overtly spy on a family justice campaign.
Yes. Yeah. Which is a really fucking low bar for unremarkable for someone who was in the field for quite a long period of time, got involved in all sorts of stuff. There's plenty of questions that activists have about him, particularly Emily Apple, who knew him very well. She will be giving evidence, but not till like end of March. I mean, she's being questioned much later date. Essentially, no civilian witnesses are appearing before he gives evidence, which is kind of weird.
It's very unusual. It's very unusual and
wrong.
I think, I mean, I don't know if when the RTS witness statement is being published.
So I did a chat with Kyle just before I came on air. He says that they're going to batch everything out and try and catch up. And then when we get to Jason Bishop, it will be the statements on the day from there on in. I've heard this sort of talk before. Yeah. I don't necessarily believe him, but that's what they're endeavoring to do. Ciao for now. Sorry, I was just saying goodbye to somebody else.
Yeah, but the Reclaim the Streets witness statement does contain quite a lot of detail about Bishop's deployment, so hopefully that will be made public beforehand, and people can get a look at that. We can talk about it.
After that, we will be hearing from Donna McLean and Lindsay, two of the women who were deceived into long-term intimate relationships by Carlo Soracchi, who will be giving evidence the following week. But also before that, we'll have the return of Lois Austin, who we gave evidence during the last set of last phase of hearings. She was spied on by Peter Francis, gave evidence about that. She's been called back about the fact that she was spied on by Carlos Soracchi as well. I think both Donna and Lindsay's evidence will be significant.
Very much so.
Also, Lois's will be.
Lois's, I'm very keen to hear Lois's evidence. This is something that she's been called back, and she's been called back because in addition to the spying by other officers that happened, there is this one specific incident in Carlo Soracchi's deployment, which is of particular interest to the inquiry and to us, of an SDS officer actually giving a direct briefing to the Metropolitan Police Service legal team who were representing them in a civil claim, which ended up being a bit of a seminal case in terms of public order policing in the City of London, in Greater London, in the Metropolitan Police area, and yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. Still, look out for that. After Carlo Soracchi gives evidence, we then get on to the civilian witnesses who were spied on by Simon Welling. There's a whole bunch more after that. I forget off the top of my head, but we have got a week off next week. During that time, we'll catch up with everything that should have happened this week, that should have been able to cover this week. Thanks for joining us. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just that I just described a briefing to some lawyers in a civil claim as pretty wild, which is...
That's where we've got people.
Maybe evidence of how tired I am.
And also what we've become. Do you know what I mean? We used to run through the streets. Okay, thank you for joining us. All right, we'll see you all again at the weekly recap of things. Thanks for all the support, and thanks for liking, sharing, subscribing. Please continue to do that. There's lots of footage that will come out in the next few days. Bye for now.